teachings of Islam. And second is, instead of seeing them as opposites, that Iran and Saudi Arabia are geopolitical rivals of each other, that is a fact. Theologically, they are very, very similar to each other. Theologically, Wahhabism and Khomeinism are extremely close to each other. They both have a certain concept about women, for example, that is not at all a healthy concept to have, which sees women as something, as exactly as inferior to males, and which basically restricts women very, very sharply. You've seen that in Saudi Arabia, for example, where you're not allowed to travel unless you're accompanied by a male. You're not allowed to go out of the country. You're not allowed to drive. A lot of other things are there. Iran has also got a similar kind of, a lot of problems are there in Iran as well. So they have a commonality of views on the whole question of women. Now, if you want to broaden this a little bit and talk about, we can talk about in India. You have you have the Sri Ram Seni, which is active in this district, and you have the Taliban, and they both have the same view of Valentine's Day. There is no difference between Mr. Mutalik and Mullah Omar when it comes to Valentine's Day. Both are fully aware that it's an absolutely one of the most dangerous and insidious cultural transplants from the West ever to hit Asia. And they're united on a lot of things. They're united about their feeling toward women. They're united about their feelings toward democracy. They're united about their feelings to superiority of their own faith. There's an amazing congruence of mind between the Sri Ram Sene and, if I may say so, the Wahhabis, exemplified by the Taliban. So, as I said, we say great minds think alike. It's very clear that on social issues, definitely, they do think alike. And so did Khomeinism and Wahhabism. These two philosophies are also extremely similar to each other. They have, number one, a very clear concept of religious supremacy. Now, we all know what is racial supremacy. We have a situation in which certain races believe they're superior to other races, and they have the right to enslave them, or to rule over them, or to colonize them. And that kind of situation, frankly, in India you've got the caste system, which is to some extent a form of ethnic superiority. Japan, you had the Second World War, or before the Second World War, they took over a lot of colonies, and even today the negative effect of that is there. But today I think it's very clearly understood that racial supremacy is something which is absolutely impermissible, and it is being fought successfully across the world. Religious supremacy is a belief that one's own faith is the supreme faith, and one's own faith should have privileges and advantages over every other faith in a state. So, if you belong to faith X, you should be treated much better than people of other faiths, and other faiths should be, in a sense, beholden to you. This is what's called religious supremacy. You see that in Iran, you see that in Wahhabi states, you see that in some parts of the world, but in my way of thinking, religious supremacy is as wrong as racial supremacy. That essentially, your religion is a very, very important thing, but everybody has got the right to their own version of the faith, and everybody has the right to equal treatment. But religious supremacy is ingrained in Wahhabism, and it's ingrained in Khomeinism. Treatment of women, religious supremacy, cultural issues, and this whole concept of modernization. I think last time I was here, I talked about how many people have confused modernization with westernization. The reality is that there's a big difference between the two. And today, for example, you can go around in denims, you can go around in very Western clothes, but you need not say that you're westernized. You're modernized. You can be very Indian, very traditional, and still wear denim. It's not necessary that you should. You should wear a sari to be a traditional person. That's so. But we have got this unfortunate identity between westernization and modernization, and because of the negative reflex that we have towards Western colonialism and towards racism, we have some people have a reflex towards modernization as well, and that has been a little unfortunate. But anyway, Wahhabis, Khomeinis, Sri Ram Sene, whatever you got it, they have all got the same point of view about modernization as well. They are completely opposed to it. On economic policy, on various other policy, there is a strong. So here you have Khomeinism as a very strong faith, Wahhabism as a very strong faith. Now, why I am saying that is, these are two very powerful theologies. And when you have two very powerful theologies, when you are then essentially the question of compromise does not exist. Either you surrender or you defeat. The question of working out a deal, an agreement, does not happen. But both to the Wahhabis and to the Khomeinis, the question of working out a deal is out of the question. Either I lose or you lose. It's what is called a zero-sum game. As you know, if you look at game theory, it's a zero-sum game. Whatever you gain is at my expense and vice versa. Why this is important is that all these conflicts in the Middle East now, we have a large number of people who are trying to work as conflict resolution specialists, who are coming up with this solution and that solution, this adjustment and that adjustment, and they're very surprised that nobody is listening. The reason why nobody is listening is the fundamental theology of many of the people who are creating problems on the ground completely rules out the question of compromise. So that is something that we have to keep in mind. So again, as I said, one, monarchist, anti-monarchist. Two, Shia Sunni, specifically Wahhabi, Khomeinist. Now, this is another fault line. The third fault line would be, I would say, Arab, non-Arab. And here we have Iran representing the Shia and the new government in Turkey representing what we call a Sunni assertion. Now, this again, and Turkey, as I said, has got a lot more history with the Arab world than the Iranians have. And they have a lot more resonance there. And now the new Turkish government is playing an extremely activist role in the region. So that's one set of situation that is taking place. Let's turn to something which is a little more 21st century or whatever, which is the internet, which is your Facebook, which is your Twitter, and all these things. In all these states, the media have been very tightly controlled. Even internet access, actually, they try to control. Whether it's in Iran, for example, or any other place, they have large numbers of public terminals. If you go to Iran, if you go to Syria, they'll have large numbers of computer banks where you're welcome to use that and browse that, so they can keep an eye. They just don't want a computer in a place where they can't, they don't have really ability of monitoring what you're doing. But what has happened is, because of the spread of technology, you have got a system in which information can no longer be controlled by the state or by the ruling group. Information can no longer be sealed off from the outside world. You have information coming from the outside world, you have information coming from non-state actors, and in this game of information warfare, the very rigid theologies are definitely have the upper hand. If you're a Wahhabi, you're a very strong believer, you fill the internet with your Wahhabi kind of conversation. If you're a Khomeinist, again a very strong belief, you fill the internet with your kind of Khomeinist views. So unfortunately, one of the negatives of the internet is the more extreme, the extremes tend to drive out the moderates. The extremes tend to be louder than the moderates, more visible than the moderates, and slowly you see in the discourse, extremists seem to be having a bigger share through the internet. That's one of the negative things in the internet. And one reason could be that most of us really don't respond to these debates. When you have a debate in the internet, most of us, we read the debate, but how many of us will give a comment? Very, very few. I mean, I wouldn't venture a statistical guess, but it must be quite few. Whereas, if you've got an extreme ideology, you're much more likely to give a view. You're much more likely to hold an argument, with the result that finally, if you read, for example, sometimes, I read one particular article, let's say, that's come, and then you find the commentaries in the article. Gradually, you find the commentaries becoming more and more extreme. Everybody else drops out, and only the extremists keep fighting each other. So in the final stages of the argument, it's two extremes battling each other, and everybody else is just out of the equation. The same thing is happening in the internet. So you have this kind of situation now taking place in the Arab world. Again, remember, the Arab world is a world which is extraordinarily young. I think that about 50% of Arabs are about the same average age as you people are in this classroom. If you look at the average age in this classroom, including myself and everybody else, and you put in yours, I would say more than 50% of Arabs are are about the same average age as this particular group. So you have a very interesting and very volatile mixture. You have a mixture of competing ideologies, you have a mixture of competing theologies, and you have a mixture into which technology has suddenly given the means to disseminate information across large sections of society. On all this, you've got essentially non-representative systems that are ruling the roost. Whether it is the Ba'athist regimes, whether it is the monarchies, whether it is the Shia